Hey guys, what's going on? And welcome to another guest coach Q&A. I believe this is maybe the fourth or fifth time Tommy is on. We have a few new members since Tommy's last one as well, so I'll let him do his introductions. But a wealth of experience, obviously for the past members, Tommy's been on 4 or 5 times and giving great information out here as well. So we've got two questions, so thanks for sending them in. But before we get into them, thanks again, Tommy, for jumping on.
I appreciate you having me on again, mate, to hopefully bring some decent ideas and answers to your members. Surely if I'm on this many times, or you're just sick of me by now.
No, mate, quality information every single time and always some good feedback. Just for the new members who may be unfamiliar, I've given you a little bit of spiel about you in your intro when I posted about you coming on yesterday, but just give a bit of background. Obviously, I know you're working with a lot of boxers, combat sports athletes now, and a background in strength conditioning, but if you want to just give the elevator pitch, however long the elevator is, you go for that.
Yeah, so my background being coaching out of what was previously CrossFit Liverpool for the past 7-8 years. Recently changed over to Stronghold, predominantly powerlifting, gymnastics, mixed conditioning, and then Olympic weightlifting. Recently graduated from a master's in strength and conditioning, and then after the undergrad, and I'm working with general population to athletes, a lot more like John said, combat sports, so jiu-jitsu, MMA, Thai boxing, boxing. So yeah, that's my background.
Right, you've nailed that elevator pitch. Very, very good.
Got better. That's my fourth time, so I've had to iron it out.
Awesome. All right, we'll get back into it. Two questions you guys have sent, and two really good questions, to be fair. So there should be some good conversation about this, but we'll tackle number one first. And this is how to fit an effective workout in with limited gym time. So Tommy, take whatever direction you want to go. So we can talk about strength, muscle mass, just cardiovascular fitness, whatever you want to go for. Dive in.
100%, mate. So if no one knows, I'm about to become a dad. So this was actually great thinking for me to think about, because I know I'm going to be short on a little bit of time in the future, whereas in the past 60 to 90 up to 120-minute sessions of no longer of my youth. So 30 years old, baby coming. It was actually a good question for me to dig into. So yeah, I'll put a couple of bullet points. I think I've more kept it around strength, but then we can touch on like other factors of like training. But first bullet point, to see what you think of this, is I believe most people spend too long in the gym. It's a bit of a maybe like a question on top of a question, but we'll dive into it a little bit more, like why. So my reason behind it was intent. I'm moving with intent during the training session. So most of us might know, like people who go to the gym and they spend 90 up to 120 minutes, maybe just moving around from machine to machine or exercise to exercise. And they walked out after 90 minutes, 60 minutes and just tried to hit every part of the body and just really not attacked it with like intent. When we say with intent, we think about intensity, how much you're actually putting effort into the movement. And you might be around 50, 60%. So narrowing the time frame down to try and get an effective workout might actually drive intent a little bit more. If you've got only 30 minutes, you might pick a primary movement, a secondary movement to support that, and then it could be a little bit of conditioning or accessory work on top. But you know, if you've got one primary movement to hit in 30 minutes, which you might only have 10 to 15 minutes to get your sets done, you're going to really drive your intent and move. You're going to probably put your phone away, headphones in, whatever your sort of environment is, and you're going to attack it. So that was my sort of take on that. I'm not too sure what you think, John.
Yeah, really good take with that, and a nice position to lead off with this question. Absolutely. When you're very limited with time, you start looking at your program, you're like, right, what is actually the bare necessities of what I need to do to get to my goal? And like Tommy said, a lot of time, myself included, with other the sessions, is that we fill it with fluff sometimes. We fill it with fluff. We do extra things we don't really need to do, or sometimes it's just young volume where we're tired, we're not going to get a lot out of the exercise, but we still do it. And it kind of takes away from the core lifts that we could just do, get in, lift with intent, and then leave the gym with a great stimulus and ready to go for the rest of the day without spending 2 or 3 hours in the gym as well. So the first things first is, what do I need to do? quite often with that, it's the kind of a bit of knowledge in terms of like training volume and what you need for taking to the strength route. You can get away with a bare minimum work in the gym and still actually see some pretty impressive strength gains. Whether that's between like 1 to 5 working sets per week, you could see some great strength gains with that for a couple of months. Muscle mass anywhere between 10 to 20 sets. But when you think about that, it's like, all right, if I'm hitting 10 sets on a pushing exercise spread across 2 sessions, that's 5 sets across 2 sessions. And you think, right, a couple of minutes rest in between them. That's actually not a long session. And you think, oh, I could actually get some really good volume in there, really good strength work, and not spend hours and hours and hours. And quite often, I think you alluded to this as well, Tommy, is that when we're in a session, how much of it is actually intense work and how much is it is scrolling on Instagram and not realizing that 5 minutes passed.
100%. I think you touched a little bit on today. I watched your story about I answer you my questions sometimes. It keeps my brain fresh. It's like people watch Countdown to stay fresh on top of the maths and the general knowledge. I answer John's questions to stay on top of my fitness and see what I know. But I think you touched on a point of no return with squats transferring over to speed. So people say you can get strong to turn over to speed, but then there's a point of diminishing returns where you just overdoing with the strength, not actually practicing the skill. Probably the same with within a session. There's going to be a point of, like you've talked about in the past with research, there's probably a very optimal point of volume and also reps and sets, etc. Obviously, that is volume before you get to a certain point. And it's like, well, you're probably just fatiguing yourself. And that's where we get into the thing of, I believe most people don't get nothing out of the training through the program and all the actual intent that's to sort of doing, but it's more from under recovering, in my opinion, after working with like athletes and just general population. Don't know what your thoughts are on that, John.
Yeah, again, pretty similar to what we were saying. A lot of people try to fit in a lot in, and like you said, that might be detrimental to their recovery when they could just cut out all the excess stuff and be like, all right, what do I need to do to get better? Do that, concentrate on recovery, and then crack on with the rest of the day, which a lot of people definitely get lost, including myself in the sessions. You get excited, oh, I'm going to add on some biceps here, I'm going to do some extra triceps at the end. Before you know it, the extras have taken just as long as your sets of squats and bench press, which was the actual main goal of the session, which can take away from obviously recovery as well. And exactly what Tommy said, there is definitely a point to no return or point of no returns with strength volume, with lifting to build muscle. And by going over that, you're not actually getting better gains. You will actually just digging a bigger hole of recovery that you need to recover from as well. So as well as spending so much time in the gym thinking you're going to make great progress, you're also prolonging your recovery time as well. So the next time you go into the gym, whether it's 24 hours later, 48 hours, you still might be quite fatigued there and not get a quality session in. I mean, it's kind of an ongoing domino effect of I'm still under recovered and I'm still going to the gym. In my experience, sometimes, tell me about your thoughts as well, Tommy, is that when coaching people, sometimes you reduce their volumes down to quite minimal and they're like, I'm unsure about this. And then after a few weeks, they're like, I've deadlifted the heaviest I've ever deadlifted. I'm like, there we go. I mean, it goes hand in hand with a peaking phase, say with strength, but you can prove to people like, no, once you get rid of fatigue, like your strength is skyrocketing and you can do that for like a good amount of weeks, improve. And then, yeah, maybe we're going to add some more volume back in when life allows us to.
100%. I touched on a video of my own sort of members earlier today when someone asked a question about should they constantly increase the weight when you come onto like the sessions, a specific program we're running at the moment, and actually got me thinking about factors outside the training that affect basically what you do within the gym. So there's a lot of stresses like financial stress, relationship, family, work stress, worrying about how the weather's crap, you know what I mean? But it actually affects what you do with inside the gym, and every day is not going to be, oh, it's time to increase the weight day or it's time to PB day. And then I know you probably use this similar to me as the RPE scale or reps in reserve, where you probably find people do really, really well on that because you're giving them basically a couple of reps left in the tank, and that basically adjusts on how they feel within that sort of day, because we know we have really good days and we don't have some of the best days, because we're not like elite athletes, so we're not really driving our recovery as much as sort of they are, whether that's through funds or accessibility and stuff like that. But that actually allows us to get a little bit more out of our training, because we're leaving maybe a little bit in the tank here and there, but it's adjusting based on our stresses outside of it. So hopefully that weren't too complex.
No, really interesting there as well. And just for some practical take homes as well, what sort of stuff could you do to really cut down training times in terms of whether you're training for strength or muscle mass? It could be
Yeah.
simple things like timing your rest, or it could be particular training styles that lend itself to get them done quite quickly. But what would your go-tos be?
I'm glad you asked me this, John. I put 3 examples down on my notes.
Excellent.
So I've got a 30-minute example, a 20-minute example, and then a 10-minute example. So I always hear the phrase of, oh, I haven't got 10 minutes. Surely everyone's got 10 minutes. But if you haven't, I don't know what I can do for you. Probably not gonna lie. The 30 minutes was split into time. So if you're writing out your session, a good thing to do so you stick to the times, maybe set the timer and write the times next to maybe your warm up or your primary lift and then your accessory, so you stick within them sort of time frame. So for the 30-minute one, part A, 5 minutes movement prep specific to your main lift. If it's squats, work through a set of goblet squats or areas that you feel might need a little bit of TLC for your squat. Part B, primary lift, goal dependence, whether that's strength, speed, endurance. Set a clock for 10 to 15 minutes. With the warm-up, it could be between 15 and 20 minutes there. And then part C is accessory to the support or workout, depending on what your goal is. 20 minutes, we've reduced the movement prep even more. So you probably have to move a little bit more intense. 3 to 5 minutes movement prep. 5 to 10 minutes primary lift. You could reduce the reps, or like John said, the rest there. And then a bit of an AMRAP with accessory to make the accessory work a little bit more crushed in, like a density set. And then the final one is 10 minutes. This is just EMOM style. You can drive this with strength for low reps or hypertrophy for high reps with a short rest. Set a clock for 10 minutes. Example back squat. Every minute you hit 1, 2, 3 reps. If you hit 3, you're going to be pretty gassed by the end. But as I say, 10 minutes doing something rather than nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really good. And I love the EMOM style as a personal favorite because, or even if it's not every minute on the minute, maybe every 2 minutes on 2 minutes, or every 3 minutes on the 3 minutes, but just having that countdown clock going, be like, I know I've got to go on this timer. It can really make you stick to obviously the time. And little things as well, like if we're not timing our sessions, just don't have your phone on. So simple, just to get carried away on Instagram, and then pick a training technique. Could be multiple training techniques out there. I know you recently, Tommy, did the 6, 12, 25, where it's bloody hell, 6 reps, 12 reps, 25 reps. You might have a minute or 2 rests, 3 minutes rest, and then you're back into it, 3 rounds, and like, oh, that's a body part done. You do 2 of them, and then you're absolutely done. And that shouldn't take you that long whatsoever. There's cluster training for strength. There's minimal training for strength. Like you could build up to a heavy one and be like, oh, I'm done. Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely multiple ways to train to still make huge amounts of progress, and we do not need to spend that long in the gym to actually see progress. And quite often, it's better to undercut your volume and just to do a little bit less rather than a little bit more. So you always go into the gym quite fresh. Obviously, there's a time and place where we have to push hard, but I'd rather undercut someone than overcook someone and they're under recovered the whole time and actually just spending too long in the gym.
No, I agree. You can, as I say, if you overcook it, there's a lot to do there with the person starts to feel a little bit delusioned with how they perform, and they start to think, oh, I'm not really progressing here because I'm super tired. Whereas the undercutter, you always leave them with a little bit of relief, thinking, oh yeah, I've got a little bit more to push there. There's a little bit more of a psychological effect as well.
Absolutely. I think we've gone over that pretty well. So obviously we've got training techniques, we've got times, reps, time sessions as whatnot. I really like that timestamp one you just said as well before. We were like, all right, 5 minutes for warm up. All right, got to hit this first one like this minute mark, and I thought that was really cool actually. Spot on. The next question we've got is obviously a really good question. Gym-based speed training, can you get faster without sprinting? Very good question.
Talking to the two speed demons here as
Oh,
well.
I don't know about that. A big pudding who attempts to run. Not to side tangent this, like put that. I never really post my running on Instagram. I don't know whether many people know I like to do my sprints. So posting, I'm like, any minute now, like I can name 3 people who's going to give me big stick, and rightly so. Within 5 minutes, 3 of my good mates text me, was like, "What are you doing?"
Internet coaches, man. Oh.
Oh.
Quality.
But yeah, go on, mate. Take it whatever direction you want to go. I know I've got my thoughts on this, but I'll be keen to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, cool. Probably similar, but again, you can relate it towards strength. I'll use that example a little bit later on, but as we know, some of the factors when it comes to training, being good at something is specificity. So you actually need to sprint to get faster, which I know you talk about multiple times. It is task dependent. So a lot of people think sprinting is a bit of a almost like accessory or whatever, but it's an actual skill. So to get better at a skill, you need to obviously perform it multiple times. There's loads of things like the 10,000 rep rule and perfect practice makes perfect and phrases like that. So it sort of fits in with that window. Well, however, that being said, you can work on elements of sprinting in an isolated environment. As me and John know, like for warming up for sprints, you can work on something that you struggle with, like we mentioned before, the movement prep before a primary lift. If someone struggles with acceleration or getting that lean, can you get them against the wall to do a wall drill? That doesn't mean, though, that these movements increase speed by not doing speed. These are just sort of improving a weak part of the link. So an example I use, because I'm very strength orientated, so that's like me happy place, is if we take a back squat variation, there might be sticking points on a squat, and then you isolate a certain sticking points and you get stronger at it. So off the top of my head, which is something that we're doing at the moment, is using pins to drive like certain sticking points of the squat. So someone maybe gets stuck about 3/4 out of the hole, set pins up and then really drive load there, and obviously training adaptation to try and improve that part so it transfers over to the whole lift. But you wouldn't just completely take out the squat. You need to still perform the whole lift and see if it's working. That's exactly like you would do with speed, breaking down elements of speed, but then actually putting it back into sprints. Again, don't know what you think about that, John. Whether you same thoughts or different?
Yeah, pretty similar thoughts. I suppose it would be more interesting for the listeners if you're like, oh, disagree and all that. But
Yeah, no.
to be honest, the exact same thing. Specificity is number one rule when it comes to what sports and exercise science. Just, are you doing the thing you want to get better at? Yeah, of course, you can do some elements that will improve potential parts of that thing. But if you want to get better at basketball, you play basketball. If you want to get better at football, you play football. Same with sprinting, same with squatting and whatnot as well. Um, I'm super interested in this question as well. From a rugby background, it was really interesting when I was going through S&C as a junior, and we didn't have sprint time to sprint during the week quite a lot of the time because there was so much like skill based stuff and whatnot. So we did a lot of speed within the gym. But the strength and conditioning coach, really good to be fair, was really good at explaining like this is just kind of like prerequisites and stuff that will aid you sprinting, but we're not doing the actual thing that you need to do as well. So things like we could work on ankle stiffness and do our pogos in the gym. We could work on that base level of strength that will convert into some power by squatting. We can work on rate of force development with our Olympic lifts or our med ball throws or our box jumps, something like that as well. So we put all these components together, and it's like having a lot of the puzzle of your puzzle board, but we're not together yet. They're kind of like right, they're there, and sprinting is putting them all together. So you can go away and be like, you know what, I'm adding this puzzle piece. That's my ankle stiffness in there. I'm doing my pogos. I'm doing my rate of force development. I've got that little puzzle piece there, and I've got my strength base. I'm going to put that puzzle piece there. But if you don't sprint, yes, you might have some freaks who are just really good, like genetic freaks who can just do that and just be super fast. But for the majority of us, and if anyone wants to improve, it's like, right, we're going to put these puzzle pieces together and actually do the task at hand here. So yeah, Tommy, very, very similar thoughts. I believe you can train properties that will aid sprinting, but if you want to get better at actual sprinting, you should definitely sprint. And I think a lot of people undermine how technical it is as well, especially at high level. I know you went down to Loughborough and did that speed training day. And just dive into a little bit of the technicalities that goes into top level sprinting.
Yeah, so my take on a good coach is they can make the most complex systems and get it across to like the most simple individual who doesn't really understand like the principles of sprints. And at the time, that was me. I had a rough idea of like certain positions to hit, acceleration, top speed, ground contact time and stuff. But in terms of like levels, I was like way down here, and these guys are like super up here. But we basically broke it down to warming up for speed. So things like what you need to improve on within sprint. So again, work on properties like John said. Acceleration, it's a long drive, it's a long push. So developing like longer ground contact during the warm up, like A skips, B skips, that type of stuff. And as you get further into the day, worked on top speed, spending as little time on the ground. So things like John mentioned before, pogo jumps, what's the word? Scissors, that type of stuff, just working on your ability to spend as little time on the ground as possible. But there was, I can't think of his name, you know him, John. Joel Ferron, actually. I think he's been involved in GB 100 metres and he's now involved with bobsleigh. He was just one of the coaches there, and obviously he's been to like some of the pinnacles of 100-metre sprints, and he's even nowhere near like the levels of like Usain Bolt and stuff. So it just shows you, and the information he put across to us was just like ridiculous. But he actually explained it in simple terms versus the main guy, which is Jonas Dodo. We're following him, Speedworks, Speed Train, if you want to have a look at that type of stuff. It's very complex, and I think me and John spoke about it in the past, where you see these videos broken down on like social media, and you've got all like the right angles on the hips and stuff like that. And we talked about it recently, as in the past I've been at fault for videoing it way too much rather than just sprinting. When in the past now, the past couple of weeks, me and John have been sprinting outside, and we've been just getting it done and getting to work. But I think depending how high you're going up the chain, if you want to get really into speed stuff, you might have to break it down to them little nuances. But if you're looking to get for the sport and stuff like that, 100% guarantee you're going to get a lot out of just speed work and work on the properties sort of surrounding it. Take a breath.
Mate, really well answered, yeah, and that just definitely alluded to how complex it can be. It's all well and good. I mean, to break it down to maybe someone following, say, the Strong and Fast program, which is my athlete-specific program, for anyone listening, a lot of people would be able to get stronger, especially general members of the public, if they're on that program, gets faster, just by getting stronger, losing some body fat, getting better conditioned, so your body's better prepared to run. Then when we add some power stuff in, we get used to the connective tissue, gets used to that kind of ground contact time and that rate of force development as well. It just comes together. But actually sprinting as well will get you into that. And just a word on that as well, if you can weigh in this as well, Tommy, prepping your body for sprinting. So a lot of people might be like, oh, I feel unfit here, I feel slow, I'm going to do some sprints. And then after not sprinting for 6 months, just go to the local field and be like, I'm going to bust out a fast 40, and then wonder why they've just pulled both hip flexors and their calves are cramped up. It takes time, mate.
100%. And as I say, I think preparation we've done the past couple of Saturdays, we started with a little bit of movement and mobility drills, just like walking back and forth over 25 feet and just going through some of the basics of what you're going to use on that day. So Cossack squats for the groin, hip flexor pulls for the hips, hamstring drags for the hamstrings, basically just exciting them parts up and just let them know that they're about to be used, and just building a pace. So that'll be at like 10 to 12, 15%. From there, might go to like 20 to 30% speed and some of the drills up. So that's where we get into like A skips, A walks, just basically prepping like the movement pattern up. From there, you might go to like 40 to 60%. We start adding like med ball throws, pogo, so a little bit more transferable to speed, but not as aggressive. And eventually just doing build-ups, which me and John have done in the past, start at 70%. acceleration, then build all the way up to like your full hit. And basically just working through that percentage of effort or intent, like we mentioned before, over your sort of session, starting with warm up all the way to all out speed.
Spot on, mate. Spot on. Couldn't have said anything better myself there as well. I think we've answered those two questions quite well. Is there anything else you want to go over? So, first one was how to fit an effective workout in with limited gym time, and second one, gym-based speed training. Can you get faster without sprinting? Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think with the first one, obviously, just don't take everything like said set in stone. I recently posted a post around like movements and training. There's always got to be context to what you're doing. So that could be perfect for strength, but like John mentioned before, like if you're trying to fit in like maybe hypertrophy, you have to get a little bit more volume to change how your body looks or increase the amount of tissue on your body, lean mass, etc. Then you might have to look at different variants than what we've talked about to actually get the optimal range. So yeah, don't take what we've said for set in stone. Have a little practice and see what works for you. You know what I mean? That's the main thing. Just get out there and do it. And for speed, I think we sort of touched on it. And it's like one thing I wanted to mention. This came from Cam Hoss. I know you're familiar with him, John. I've listened to him on a podcast a couple of times where he's mentioned about like micro dosing, just getting a little bit of speed work in every other couple of days, and that could be like John mentioned with training before. Over a couple of days, short sessions actually accumulate to really a lot of sets, reps, and practice under what the actual skill you're doing. Whereas someone might go, right, I'm going to try and dedicate this just one session to get faster. Right, it's a skill, so we might need to practice it more. So that's where micro dosing and spending maybe 5 to 20 minutes just doing simple movement that might actually carry over to improving your position or your contact time or your actual speed.
Yeah, mate, nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. One for the fourth or fifth guest appearance, you've nailed it. There'd definitely be a fifth or sixth. I can't remember how many it's been.
I have to get like a WWE t-shirt or something like that.
Just a mic drop moment. Tommy, thank you very much, mate. Massively appreciate it. I know the guys will really appreciate that as well and acknowledging that. So really massive thank you as well. Instead of asking you every single time about your Instagram handle, because I know it's a sore subject trying to feel like where the 101 is, I will tag you within our groups. And I think the majority of the guys do follow you as well, which was great. But definitely, guys, give Tommy a follow. Superb information on his Instagram. And I know he's giving out some good, valuable tips as well. So definitely worth a follow. But Tommy, thank you again for hopping on the Q&A.
No problem, John. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.